Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Ultra Catalyst podcast. My name's Steven. You've met me before. You've heard a lot of episodes. If not, if this is your first time, I got a brand new guest, Ron Lotti. You're going to want to get to know him. We're going to be covering a lot of different scenarios and different events throughout his life and maybe mine, where you're going to see that there was different situations that came up and he had to make a decision. Was he going to continue being the same person he's been for that long time, going through all the pain and struggle, or is he going to make that decision, that one catalyst that changes life forever, often bigger and better things? And believe me, you're going to want to buckle in and sit tight because this dude is loaded up with fire and it's going to be a great episode. So put your hands together. Let me introduce you to Ron Lotti. He is an entrepreneur, a business owner, a father, and a husband, and a former military veteran. Please welcome Ron. What's up, my brother? How are you?
What's happening, man? Good to be here.
Great to be here. I know we were able to connect a few weeks ago, and we just had a little bit of time getting to know each other. And what I'd like to do is, can you tell us, our audience, a little bit about you, where you came from, how you kind of got here, and where you kind of want to start out, right? I don't want to give too much away, but I really want to put it in your hands and give yourself a nice introduction to all things Ron Lotti.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give that a shot, right? Give my best chance here. I can tell you that literally I'm living down in Florida now. I just moved to the wonderful sunny Florida after living in New Hampshire for many, many years of my life. Moved down here with my wife and my daughter. What got me here though was literally just the sun. I couldn't take I couldn't take the cold, I couldn't take the snow, and we'll probably get into that a little bit here today because that's a big part of some of the stuff I went through for most of my life, dealing with depression, trying to push through from PTSD, and the darkness and the cold certainly doesn't help with that. So that's what got me down here. But now I'm just a normal dude that does some crazy stuff, and tries to live life every day and just try to battle and keep moving forward.
Oh, awesome, man. Well, let's jump right in, man. So I know you were sharing some experience that you had back being in the military. Can you kind of dive in, like what area were you in, or I should say, what branch were you in, and what kind of situations or operations did you kind of conduct, and how long were you in the military?
Yeah, happy to talk about it. It's difficult actually for me to talk about it, not for the reasons that listeners might think either.
Yeah.
So I joined in '99, right out of high school. I joined the Army National Guard, and honestly, I joined because I didn't know. I knew I needed purpose in life. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to be when I grew up. I moved out of my house when I was 15 years old. Might have been 16, but in with a family near me, because my mom unfortunately struggled with drug and alcohol addiction, and just we couldn't live there anymore. She ended up going away for some time, and I found myself just wondering, like, what the heck. I witnessed all that stuff as a kid, which we might talk about that too, but I was really kind of just trying to figure out what life was about. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to be. So I raised my hand and said, I want to serve my country so that there's some sort of purpose, some reason to keep moving forward. Depression is something that runs in my family. Depression is something that I was struggling with for many years. And rather than make one choice, I made another, right, to give myself a reason. So I joined in '99, Army National Guard, went down to the great state of Georgia. I was at Fort Benning, Georgia for basic training, and then advanced infantry training and mount training, which is, I guess you could call that kind of similar to urban warfare, SWAT team type stuff. And then technically I was in until 2007. So 8 years. And the way it was for me back then, 4 years on, 4 years off, 4 years active, 4 years inactive. I ended up going 1 weekend a month, but then what happened, and this is the challenging part for me, was on 2 different occasions we were called to go overseas. I can't reveal where we were supposed to go, but we were supposed to go overseas. And at the time, my first sergeant pulled me aside, interviewed me for psychological reasons, and determined at the time I wasn't suitable for war. So I ended up staying back. I stayed in Georgia. I trained soldiers down there. I was up in Massachusetts for some time training soldiers up there. And that happened to me twice. And as embarrassing as that is to admit, even now out loud, it's sort of what has driven me for many, many years. I feel lots of regret. I have brothers that went overseas and never came home. I feel like I raised my hand, but I feel a bit like I was a fraud, right? I never actually served. I never actually did anything other than train other people. So that's sort of what my years in the military were like. So 99 to 2007, and I don't really feel like I have much to show for it other than training some soldiers and being willing to raise my hand.
I will say that not ever being in the military myself, that must be difficult, right? Because you took the pledge and you said, I'm going all the way, or as far as they're going to allow me to, and they held you back. But I could say that what I see in you, just listening to you talk and us talking before, that you really have a purpose behind it now, right? Like you went in because you needed a purpose. And I think right now that purpose is starting to shine through because you've put yourself out there where you're helping other people, especially if they've been in the military, to do other things, especially fight PTSD and depression, right? Do you want to dive kind of into what you're doing now to help others?
Yeah, for sure. And just trying to do my best to do that, right? I try to talk about my struggles with depression and PTSD as often as I possibly can. And it's interesting too, right? When I talk about that, people immediately assume, well, you were in the military, you must have gotten your PTSD there. And in fact, that's not, that time, basic training was, this is going to sound strange, but those months were some of the happiest moments of my life. I mean, I had food. I knew where to be at all times. I had clothing. I had brothers and, there beside me. I had a reason to get up every morning and protect and serve. So those were great years. It was my childhood that, which I'm happy to share too, but my childhood events that caused a lot of the PTSD. So in fact, I'll take a pause there too. I read recently that 70% of military members who struggle with PTSD actually have it from their childhood, and the military years trigger it, which makes it come up a bit more. So now I don't have the science behind it or the study to share with you, but I recently read that and I found it interesting and certainly made sense to me too. But what I do now is I try to live my life telling that story and making it more mainstream and acceptable for a male to admit that he has some of these struggles mentally, and it's okay. I've said this many times. I feel like we are all beautifully broken, right? And we're just trying to help each other through life. So one, I try to share my story as much as I can. But two, I work with people one-on-one or in groups and help them just do crazy workouts that get them to push themselves to levels that they maybe didn't realize they can get through before, but while doing so, allow themselves to relive some of those moments, as painful as they are, and recognize that they've been through worse. They're alive for a reason. The world needs them. We all need each other, and we can kind of help each other get through it. So that's the second thing I'm doing, is kind of working with individuals on that level. And then I could share that there's a 44-hour workout I'm doing soon too. Is it okay if I share that now?
Oh, hey, you're an open book, brother. You're welcome to share. Let's get the news out there. Invite other people to participate.
Oh yeah, it'd be great. So on July 28th, I'm going to start a workout that will last for 44 hours. And basically the goal is to do so to raise money for Mission 22. Mission 22 is a charity that focuses on helping veterans and their families overcome veteran suicide through all of the things that cause anxiety in life and support that veterans and their families need. So my goal is to raise $22,000 for Mission 22 and do so by working out for 44 hours. There's some symbolism there, and that's what brings it back to depression and PTSD. I designed it because I've done 24-hour workouts many times in the past. I just did a 30-hour workout.
Oh, really quick, can you kind of describe to the audience, when you're saying workout, especially for a long duration, like, are you doing like multiple activities? Is it kind of circuit? Are you doing like a ultra running type thing? Like I do, like 24-hour trail run in a bunch of loops around a track. Can you kind of describe the mechanics behind these we'll say fun and exciting workouts?
I love that. I do think I call it fun all the time. My friends back home call it Ron stuff. Yeah. So great question. Thanks for pausing, catching me up here. So Essentially, I'm going to start at 8 a.m. and I have multiple punch list items, if you will, that I'm going to
Okay.
check off throughout the whole 44 hours. So, and I'm about to be announcing on my social media pages over the next week. I'm going to list out the actual agenda for people to hear. But essentially, I'll start off by running a half a marathon.
Mhm.
As soon as I finish the half marathon, there'll probably be a change of clothes and a quick bite to eat. And then I'm going to get into half marathon on the Echo bike. I'm sorry, a full marathon on the Echo bike. So 26
Okay.
miles on a resistant bike. And then I'll, same thing, a little bit of a break. After that, I'm going to do, what the heck do I have next? Oh, a row, marathon row. So
Oh, wow.
42,000 meters on a rower. Quick break, and then a bunch of other things. That's essentially how it's going to go. There'll be an
Okay.
activity, quick break, maybe an hour, food, clean myself up, change some clothes,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you know what that's like to be soaking wet, right?
There's no stop. There's no stopping when you're in an ultra event, especially, or even a marathon for that matter. You might stop at like an aid station, for example, like what you're
That's it.
describing, right? You're taking a break, rehydrating, getting more fuel in there that's going to carry you for the next 2 to 3+ hours, potentially, depending on how hard you're working. So it sounds exciting. It reminds me very similar to David Goggins' 4x4x48,
Yes,
where
sir.
you run every 4 hours, you run for either 44 miles or 40+ minutes, depending on what exercise you could do for 48 hours, right?
That's right. That's
And
right.
it's beautiful that you say that, because on my wall behind me, I actually have, when I did that, I think it was like 2, 3 years ago, all the activities that I did for that, which I mixed on either running outside, running on a treadmill, or running on an elliptical. And then I also did biking around the neighborhood. So
No,
I did all the different things just because of temperature and environment, just all these different things. I couldn't do the running at that time, but
yep. Yeah, we'll see how
that
it
sounds like a
goes.
lot of fun.
It's gonna be fun. I do have a couple of things that will be through the neighborhood that I've already gotten looks for. You'll laugh at this. I'm gonna do a mile with a barbell on my shoulders.
Okay.
Um, I'll do a mile of tire flipping as well. So all my neighbors think I'm crazy, but that's okay.
Well, I think they're doing the things they dream about, that they're are afraid other people are going to criticize them about,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's what we're doing.
Well, that's awesome. Where can they get more information on Mission 22? Because you did describe that as you're doing this for that charity.
Yeah.
Where can they find information for that?
So I'm sorry, the charity's website is just that. It's mission22.com. If people want to learn more about mine, they set up a direct link for me, so I could
Okay.
send that to you. Maybe you can get that out to listeners,
Yeah, definitely.
or they could go on my social media. It's just my name. Facebook, it's Ron Lotti, and Instagram, same thing, at Ron Lotti. And I post my link up there quite a bit. I would say what the link is, but it's one of those long.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Pass it to me. We'll put it in the show notes and we'll mention
Sure,
it for all the listeners.
sure.
So let's back up a little bit, right?
Yep.
Because we just dived into a little bit of your military career, why you're kind of doing it. We talked about some extreme activities that you're about to go do. You want other participants, listeners, listen up, join in, because he wants other people there as he's going through this, and he wants your participation too, by the way. But can you kind of dive into how you created this type of workout? Like, what does it stem from? I think a moment ago you mentioned about some earlier childhood traumas
Yep.
where you were dealing with different events, and you looked at how can I use physical exercise to kind of channel that anger into good. Can you
Yeah.
kind of take a step back and dive right into that, if you
Yeah.
don't mind?
I don't mind at all. And I like, you actually just did a great job of kind of describing how I felt for a long time. I spent most of my, first 20 years of my life angry, angry, wondering what the heck would cause certain things to happen, right?
Mhm.
I will say, and it's very important to me that you and the listeners hear this, that my mother, while I mentioned she struggled with drug and alcohol addiction from me being at a very young age, I witnessed it, and witnessed some horrific things. But my goodness, she was a beautiful, beautiful human being. And I get emotional talking about it because maybe 7 people in this world ever got to see it, you know.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart because there were moments in my childhood where I got to see it, and she was such an amazing person, all heart, so much love, and then it was gone really quick, right? And then she
Mhm.
used that many times against myself and my sisters, you know, telling us things like, you know, if you tell anybody what's going on, I'll kill myself, and going to bed at
Yeah.
night thinking, all right, if I tell anybody, my mom's going to kill herself. Or you know, she unfortunately would made some bad choices, and I had multiple stepfathers, all of which beat the crap out of me, and that was just their thing to
Yeah.
do, you know. So I didn't really see what love was, or what it was supposed to be, or I had most of my childhood thinking that there was something wrong with me. I felt angry at the world. I thought the world was full of nothing but bad people. I watched people stabbed and killed in front of me for drugs. You know,
Mhm.
we spent many nights homeless on the streets. We had nowhere to live. So that's sort of what my childhood was like. And because of that, you nailed it. I was angry. I was an angry, angry
Yeah.
kid. And it wasn't until, you know, years later when I moved in with that family when I was in high school, and I got to see a family sit down to have dinner together every night. um, and talk to each other and ask how each other's days were. And I was like, what's happening here? You know, I was a little taken back, and I started to kind of see that may have been what families were supposed to be. And then I joined the military. And in the military, there were moments where it was really dark, and I was angry and I was upset, and the drill sergeants would just make you keep going, you know,
Yeah.
just more push-ups. I don't really care, Lotti. Just get down and do more. We're gonna run, and I had major shin splints, and they say we don't care. You know, the world's not going to wait for you.
Mhm.
You just keep going, and it's so I just find a way, and I started to feel like, all right, here's this worthless piece of crap, nothing kid, but there's something. And wow, I can keep going. I can keep doing this. There's something here, and that's sort of what got me turning to physical activity for many, many years. But what got me to doing this more often was many, many years later, in my 30s, when all of a sudden, when life was really good, I was fortunate. And I know I'm jumping around here, but
Yeah. That's all
after
right.
serving the military, and then not too long after that, I met my wife, and then we had our daughters, and then I decided I needed to make something of myself to support a family, because I didn't want my daughter to go through anything close to what I went through ever. I wanted
Mhm.
her to always have everything she ever needed in life, and that's what got me to work hard. So because of that, I worked hard, and people gave me a shot, and I ended up getting a nice career. And then I got to a point in my life, I don't know, 8 years into that career, when things were really good. We had a beautiful house, everything was great. But then I was going to bed at night having these traumatic, horrific dreams. I had night after night where I didn't sleep. I would wake up in cold sweats. I was screaming, and I didn't know what was going on. And in my dreams, I was physically hurting myself.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so thankfully, I started to see a counselor who kind of talked me through all of that, helped me understand at the time that a big part of me was killing off the old me and
Mhm.
realizing it's time to
Makes sense.
become who I'm meant to be. And one of the activities he had me do was go down to my basement, grab a tennis racket of all things, and start hitting a pillow as hard as I could. But he said very specifically, when you do this, I want you to remember and relive some of these traumatic moments that you went through, that you never
Mhm.
went through, that you never talked about, or never. I basically just pushed everything down
Yeah.
and drive on for years and years and years. But my goodness, the world caught up, right? The demons caught up.
They always do.
It's crazy. So that's what happened. I did that, and as weird as it might sound, about 30 seconds into hitting these pillows as hard as I could, I started throwing up. Come to find out, I guess that's a normal reaction when you're allowing yourself to refuel some of this junk. And he called it all of the junk I pushed down coming up. It's kind of gross to think about, but so I did that. And then it turned into doing, I said, all right, I started to connect the dots of reliving the trauma, forcing myself to think about it, going through very, very hard, long things in the military and finding a way to get through it. And I started to combine them and said, that's when this all began. And I put a 100-pound vest on, I got on a treadmill, put it on an incline, and I would walk for 3, 4, 5 hours and just relive those traumatic events that I went through and cry and kind of work through all that stuff. So that's what spawned all of these things recently.
Well, I gotta say, for men, especially in our era and just in general, it's hard to be vulnerable like that and share different traumatic events, right? Like I know growing up, I had several different traumatic events that ate away at me for 5, 10, 15 years. And they'd come up when you least frickin' expect it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like you're always having these things, right? Like sometimes you're cool. Weeks go by, everything seems to be good. And then there's some sort of event that happens. You might not even know what it is, right? And it triggers this. And then all of a sudden, deep down inside, you got this lightning bolt that pulls on that frickin' anchor, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like all hell breaks loose. And what you described, it brought me back to different traumatic events that I've had that I ended up getting over and acknowledging, right? Because the reality is right this very moment, we're a collection of all that shit, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. No matter how deep, dark it is, it makes us who we are today, right? But I think what you described of, you got to acknowledge it, and then you have to find an outlet, essentially, right, to release the trauma, and then recognize, like, okay, you're here, you're at this point in time. You got all these different people counting on you now.
Yeah.
I can't be that person anymore. That person can't come to the next moment in time or tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want anybody else to witness that or relive that, right? And I feel for you, brother, because 5 years and 3 days ago, I made a decision like that when I stopped drinking alcohol.
Awesome.
And literally, it was like night and day. It was like, I can't ever go back there. I just can't, because I don't know, my kid's getting older, your daughter's getting older, right?
Yep.
And there's more people counting on you. And the reality is you only got one life, and it only moves forward in time.
That's it.
Right.
That's it. It doesn't, like I said a second ago, it doesn't wait for anybody.
No.
The world's going to rotate wherever you are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care.
It doesn't. And then I think what you said, and it got me thinking, and it's super powerful, is when we as men recognize that, it's important that we go out and find other people that are going through it so we could help them through it, right? Because it took that counselor to help you snap out of it, right? Like, think about if you wouldn't have crossed paths with that person and sought the help. Notice I said that.
Yeah.
You probably would have still had a lot of those things going on, and it wouldn't have flipped the switch, right?
Right.
Or it might have been prolonged, or there could have been another event, right? But that was just one of those chance encounters where the universe is saying, hey, you know what, Ron, you need some help. This is a person that's in front of you. Seek what you need, because you're ready, right?
You know what's funny about you saying that is, as you were saying it, it made me think of how many of those situations happen throughout and continue to happen throughout my entire life, and you don't realize it until you look back many, many years later.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
I think of baseball coaches I had when I was 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
Who would pick me up and bring me to practice because they knew what was going on at home. My goodness, if it wasn't for them, where would I be? I think of teachers that would pull me aside after class just to ask how I'm doing and to make sure I get home okay. I think of a lunch lady who literally would put food aside and at the end of the day help me bring it home, so that because she knew we didn't have any food at home. I think of a police officer who that night when I was 15, 16 years old, came into the house, took my mom away, brought her to jail, but before doing so, turned to me and said, you got a choice you can make. You can be that, or you can be who we think you can be, and you get to choose that. I think of the family that I got to move in with. It's, I think of how I met my wife and how I met some friends that I have now. Like it just can, we can all get upset with life and take it for granted in the moment.
Yeah.
But I believe deep down in my heart, when we look back, and if we're open to it, there's little moments throughout life that keep us going. And I'm telling you right now, and I'm getting chills talking about it. You mentioned it a second or a little while ago, but all of that stuff happened for a reason. All of those people that gave me that little nudge, my purpose is 100% to help other people get through it.
100%,
and to keep moving forward. And I will not stop because I owe it to all of those people who gave me a chance.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you think about it, right? When you're in that dark place, you start questioning like where all the good people are at.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And the reality is they're all there. You're witnessing it, but you're blinded to their kindness, right? Because you're so consumed with all just the emotional attachment of whatever fucking hurt you at the time, right? Or back in the day, however best to say it, right?
Yeah.
There's no easy way to say it, so I'm just gonna cuss because that's natural, right? Because I remember shit. I don't know, 15 years ago, I remember opening an email from my mom. She wrote me an obituary
Oh boy.
for myself. I read it. I closed the laptop and then I went out and partied for like 2 or 3 days. And then a few days later, I opened it up, read it again, and I was like, what in the hell am I doing?
Wow.
But it still took me another 5 to 7 years to snap out of it, right? Like there's people there that they mean well, quote unquote, but they're looking out for you. I mean, I think everybody is, right?
Yeah.
And I hear this a lot, and you probably hear this, and I know we probably even said it, that nobody cares or nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
To all the motherfuckers out there saying that, you're lying.
Right.
Because at times you care about the people around you and they care about you.
Yep.
And maybe at this one moment they don't, or maybe to how it applies to your situation, they don't.
Yeah.
But the reality is without caring, you wouldn't have people supporting you. There'd be no teams behind you, right? So sometimes there's this false bravado shit that goes on where people say, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Well, there's some truth in that. Like, I don't care, like, if you ran a red stoplight today. I don't care about all the bullshit that you got going on behind the scenes. But deep down inside, I actually do care for your well-being. I want to see you fucking win.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that kind of gets me a little bit. Obviously, whatever I'm saying, people will misconstrue it, but that's all right, because the reality is we're all one big community, whether if you like it or not.
Yeah. That's true.
And the only way to succeed is by the help of the people around you.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll add to that too. I think if I'm not helping other people and making an impact in others' lives, it's when my depression comes back the fastest. And I can tell you that it's just, I believe a lot of people are like that. My light's coming through. I can see
it's all right. It's all right.
And I think that's the case, but we get caught up in, first and foremost, negativity sells, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's eyeballs and ears, right?
That's it. And it's far easier to be upset with everybody else and blame everybody else than it is to look inward. And taking this one step further, in general, people still, and I still struggle asking for help.
Oh, 100%.
So it's way easier just to say and to believe, well, nobody gives a shit anyways.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. The world's full of bad people. It makes it easier. Now I don't have to ask for help. Now I can live in the depths of the pity and the upset and anger, and it's not my fault. And that's not to say, like, people are going through things, and I get it,
Yeah.
and I'm there too. But I think you're right. I think the world is a much better place than most people want to say it is. In fact,
Yeah.
I've said that to my daughter when she was really little, and I continue to say it now. I remember saying when she was real little, like, you're going to grow up and there's going to be bad things that happen, but
100%.
80-90% of the people in the world are really good people who really want to help, and don't let the 9-10% of the rest of the world mess that up for you,
100%. If I go back and I look at the 5 years me and my family, just in the recent, like, 6-7 years, when we were a full-time RV family and we traveled the country, right? Didn't have a job, living off of whatever money I took out of my 401k, right? Two
Mhm.
small kids, two in diapers.
Wow.
We went to every kind of small town across over half of the United States, right? Within a sizable period. And we met random people of all ages, of all backgrounds, all spectrums that you could imagine within this country, right? And people were generally nice,
Yeah.
right? Like, we only met one or two people that were like, they just had it out for everybody else, right?
Mm.
The thieves, the conniving people, right? That were really up to no good, right?
Yep.
Other people also warned you about those people. Oh,
Yep.
don't talk to person in spot number 102, right?
Yeah.
They're a bit of a tweaker, or whatever the case is, right? But overall, people are actually generally good nature,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, maybe we all got blinders to a degree because our focus is only here, and then with these fun devices, right?
Yeah.
This really rots our brain more than anything nowadays, just like TV did for those in the 70s and 80s, right? Or
For
so they
sure.
say. But there are good people, and I gotta commend all the people that stepped up and said, hey, you know what, Ron, you're better than the situation that you're going through
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
There's something bigger and brighter for you. Unfortunately, you just have to be patient right now.
That's right.
And patience sucks
The
sometimes,
worst.
doesn't it?
I am so bad with that. Yeah, I'm terrible at it. That's funny. Yeah, you're right, and that's just a big part of it is, and we've all done things, right? We could all
Yeah.
look back and say, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I didn't. I think of when I was still angry and going through stuff, or even when I finally started to face some of these things and I didn't know what the hell was going on. I hurt a lot of people, not necessarily physically.
Yeah.
When I was young, I did, and I got beat up myself. But there's a lot of people I got real close to, and then destroyed that relationship because that's all I witnessed as a kid. And there's other, I didn't know. So I've ruined many relationships in my life. So it's like I'm not a saint either. I know that, but
100%, man. I know what you're talking about. I can't even count how many people I pissed off over the years, or disrupted their life for temporary periods, or maybe even longer. I don't know, right? Some of them we never talk anymore, right?
right,
Probably for the best for all parties involved, right?
for
You
sure.
never know.
Yeah, yeah.
Other people I've made up with, which is great. Now we're even closer than we were before, and it's, you know,
I love that.
um, it's uh, it's interesting when you could have that heart to heart, and that conversation, and open up and be 100% transparent with someone else. It's a raw quality, right? Some people aren't ready to go that deep, right?
For sure. No, you're absolutely right. Many years of my life, it was all surface stuff.
Yeah.
Talk about, yeah, I saw some things, I witnessed some things. They are what they are, and then I would just turn to anger and move on, and it was over. But we're all in this together, and the more we are willing to admit that, and the more we are willing to admit that we have our faults, and it's okay as long as we try our best to continue moving forward, I think the better we all will be, and the more we will see that the world is actually a really, really good place.
100%, man, 100%. So I want to move to another topic because I'm
Yeah.
kind of interested in this. And I don't want to poke fun of you, but I'll poke fun of myself, right? I'm kind of receding my hairline. It's kind of going away. I don't have a lot left on top, but you were telling me that you own a barber shop.
Yes, sir.
Are you talking like full cuts, or are you really talking men grooming, facial hair, goatees, beards, stuff like that? Tell me a
Yes.
little bit about this barber shop.
Yeah, for sure. Old school barbershop style, all the way down to
With the
the,
spiral on the outside?
yep,
Oh
all the way
yeah.
down to the razor shaving, the
Okay.
nice warm towel. I fortunately own it, but I'm not a barber. I've never been a barber. They are far more talented than me. Um, but you know what got me into it was I work in the world of finance, as I mentioned, and years ago, just a few years ago, I was running my own firm, and I was operating as a third-party CFO for a few companies, and I was introduced to one, happened to be a salon, and got to know the business and helped him, and I got to see, as corny as this sounds, I got to see people come in, sit down, talk about all of the things in their world with their barber, who I would call their counselor, for an
Yeah.
hour. And the hour would end, they'd stand up and they would be both relieved. You could see the weight off of their shoulder just from letting out things over the last hour. But then they would see themselves in the mirror, and that barber and stylist made them look as beautiful as they really are. And they
Yeah.
could see it for that moment. And they got to leave glowing. They were glowing. They were 100 pounds lighter. They were glowing. They saw themselves finally for who beautiful the person that they really are. And I was like, man, you're changing lives. You are changing lives
Yeah.
in every moment. And then you get these repeat customers. So I was so inspired by that. I ended up working with a couple other salons and barbershops up north. And then when I moved down here, I vowed when I moved down here that I was not going to own another company again for a long time. And then that lasted like 5 months. And a barbershop went up for sale. The owners, just amazing, beautiful people that I still talk to every day. I was fortunate enough to buy this shop. And now there's 5 barbers there that are just great human beings, and they change lives every day. And I get to be a tiny, tiny part of that.
Dude, that's phenomenal. You're absolutely right. Because every time I go into the barber, and I'm talking like 10, 15 years ago when I actually went into an actual barber, I knew them by name. I'd have like a rotating month appointment, right? Hey, can you squeeze me in for like this event or this conference or whatever, right? And then do it up on the sides and clean up the beard and stuff. And you're absolutely right. You walk in and you're a little shabby, right? A little off kilter looking, right? Your hair's all jacked a little bit, and then they clean you up
Yep,
and they send you out, and you're right. You're more confident. It's
for
like
sure.
putting on a brand new suit or a brand new t-shirt or shoes or anything for the first time, right? You walk a little bit higher than you did a bit before. Not to mention, I think you said it well, your chin jumps up a little bit, your chest puffs out, you got a
Yep,
little more confidence and swagger in your step.
for
That's
sure.
awesome, man. I like it.
Yep, yep. So fortunate to do that, and it's funny that you mentioned it, right? Because I'm a bald guy.
Yeah.
So people are like, "You want a barbershop?" And I'm like, Absolutely, absolutely."
Well, I didn't mean to poke fun at you. That
No,
I
no.
poked fun at myself, but yeah, no, I thought that was funny. But it makes sense. I've known a lot of barbers over the year, and then now I go to the same spot, and it's usually the same 2 or 3 ladies. And what's amazing, and you could probably attest to this if you talk to any of the barbers in your shop, they will pick up the conversation where they left it a
Oh,
month
yeah.
ago with you.
Yep.
You give them like 1 or 2 words, they remember who you are, what you did, what things went on, or you'll follow up with them. And you're right, there's that instant connection um, that you just don't get going into, I don't know, a takeout restaurant or something, unless like it's family owned and the people are working there all the time, right? It's
Yep.
it's something that just doesn't happen that often, right?
I'll say this though. To that point, I actually I think that it's everywhere.
Yeah.
if done right. Right.
Yeah.
Every single person we encounter has we have an opportunity to change their life in that moment. And you might
100%.
not know it. You might never see it. You might never talk to them again. But there are places we get to go where there's glimpses and you can see how good the world is everywhere we go. I don't care if it's a coffee shop, a barber shop, a gym, a gas station, a grocery store. I don't care what it is. There's amazing people out there, and you can see it every moment of every day.
I agree with you. I'll dive into this into a little bit of my background. My mom passed away 6-ish years ago, maybe 7 years ago, something like that. I don't recall. But one of the traits that I found from her that I take on is when I go somewhere, I'm going to make it a point to talk to the person on the other side.
Love it.
I'm going to compliment them on their hair, their smile, what they're wearing, the frickin' weather, ask them some sort of question. Because you never know, right? It could just be that they're having an awesome day and they want to share it with someone. They just don't know how to or who to, or maybe life sucks at that moment. But if you could get that one little inroad where you get that eyebrow to come up or that corner of their smile to raise, like you said, you're making an impact. You're changing someone's day, or even for a moment, right?
Yep. Every interaction, you never know. I got quiet there for a second because I just thought back to just so many of them, and I had that. I could have gone down a very different path, but someone just made that one comment, and it changed everything.
Yeah, it's amazing because, and we said this earlier, is there are good people out there. You just have to be aware of your surroundings and open to it, right? Because there's sometimes people are gonna say something and you're gonna be in not so good of a mood, and you're gonna say like, "Oh yeah, piss off" or whatever, right? And maybe you don't say that to them, but maybe it's just, okay, I'm not gonna acknowledge them, right?
Yeah.
And I think we all at some level we just want to be acknowledged, right?
Yeah. I call it seen and heard, right?
It's beautiful.
Seen, heard, and add another level to that. Seen, heard, and understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh man, I'm pretty fired up, man. Not only we talked about what you're doing with Mission 22, we also talked about different traumas. But this last piece, man, it gets my mind just racing, like of all the different people I've come across that were kind and that helped and that continue to help, which is amazing, right? It's life is, how do you say, life is a team sport, right? Right.
Yep.
We're all going to win somewhere. We just need the right people and the right attitude and the right things to fall in place, and we're all going to win, maybe at different degrees depending on how we're gauging that, what we call a win. But man, awesome. So Ron, this has been a great conversation. Tell our listeners where they could get more information and how to contact you about the great stuff that you're doing today.
No, I appreciate that. I'll start. So social media is probably the best. Facebook and Instagram. I actually just got back on social media a couple months ago, so there's not much content there, but you can see stuff I'm doing. I post my workouts every day. I post my mindset every day too. When I'm feeling like junk or when I'm feeling great, you get all of Ron. So Facebook, it's just Ron Lotti, RON LOTTI, and then Instagram, same thing, at Ron Lotti. I also too, I didn't even mention this throughout the whole conversation, but I wrote a book a few years ago too.
Oh man, I didn't know that. Yeah, let's talk about it.
It's called Manufactured Energy. So if people want to pick the book up and hear more about some of the stuff I went through as a kid, that's in there. Essentially, I wrote that book I really intended to write the book to give to my daughter someday so that she could see some of the things or read about some of the things that I went through as a kid and how I've overcome it. I take quotes that remind me of times in my life. I talk about the traumatic event, and then I talk about how I'm trying to overcome them. And that it's just a 180, 200-page book kind of talking about that and ways of overcoming trauma and using it, fueling it for a brighter future. So that's called Manufactured Energy. That's on Amazon.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. Hopefully that helps some people too. The last thing I'll say, I just wanted to mention, because I will say that there's one thing that I think there's a bit of a misconception with all of this, and hopefully it's okay to mention it, but
Yeah, totally.
I have not overcome and defeated depression and PTSD. I never will completely defeat those demons. I believe that there's a lot of quote unquote motivational speakers out there that get up on stage and they talk about, if you just do X, Y, and Z, you'll never have to be happy the rest of your life. And they sell these stories. And I want to make it very clear, I am not saying that. What I am saying is, it's okay that you went through these things. It's okay that you battle these things. We're all in this together. We're all beautifully broken. I mentioned a little while ago. But what's most important is you give yourself grace. You find a way to keep moving forward. And now those demons are actually sitting on the same side of the table with me and enjoying the ride with me. They check me every once in a while. They make sure that I'm still on track every once in a while. And how bad do you actually want it every once in a while? And how true are you to this? But they're with me now. They're not against me. So that was just, I wanted to kind of mention that too.
No, that's a good wrap up, because I agree. I think I said earlier that we're a collection of all of those things, whether if we like it or not.
That's right.
Period. Right.
Yep.
Like, you don't just kill your old self, right? You might be able to erase it, mask it, whatever. A lot of it's masking, right? Like all the depression, right? It's burying it deep down inside. But the reality is you have to be able to acknowledge and take it for what it was. Yep. And then say, okay, how am I going to use this to fuel myself forward, right? 100%. Because it's a resource. You just have to learn how to channel it. Just like you had shared your story of your counselor giving you or telling you to go down in the basement, grab a racket and swing it against a punching bag, right? I mean, you got to find ways to release the trauma. And you're absolutely right. I look back at different traumas in my life. They're still there. They haven't changed. The shit is still the shit that happened.
That's right.
It's how I acknowledge and associate the emotions connected to those events, right?
Yep.
And you're right. You just have to say, okay, that happened. That does not define me anymore. Mm-hmm. It's still going to flare up. I mean, you can't ever get rid of it, right? I mean, it's there, but no, I appreciate you making that point, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, right? Following some 10-step program as your routine, it's not going to solve all the problems. It's not going to handle all the stuff until you really go deep and dark, just like you do when you do your extreme workouts, just like when I go out and I do ultra running.
Yep.
That shit comes up, and when you least expect it, you're just more mature and stronger now that you could process it and know how to use it, right?
For sure. Absolutely. I'm still a work in progress, as are all of us.
Likewise, brother.
Sure. Good stuff.
Awesome. Hey, Ron, I really appreciate you coming on the Ultra Catalyst podcast today. For all of our viewers, reach out to Ron. We'll have his information in the show notes. Please also go back, rewind about 20, 30 minutes ago. There is some golden opportunities here for you to learn on the different tips and techniques that Ron used, as well as myself, of how you could start to uncover those traumas, how you can start dealing with them, manage them, and overcome them to realize you got the time right in front of you now to live your best life. Stop holding on to the past, because it's already gone. There's no going back to it. It's only time to move forward. Thanks again, Ron. Everybody have a wonderful holiday week, and we'll be back with you next week. Thanks again.
Love it.